Hi everyone, how are you? Today I'm going to show you how to paint some lighthouses. I've got some up here that I've just googled the images from. I'm going to show you probably something like this one or this one. So these are in my moleskin sketchbook. So I've got a couple of tops of ones here. I like painting lighthouses. They're quite easy to do and they look complicated, but they're not. So I'm going to talk you step by step how to do it. So I've got my inspiration. You can either have some images, just call some images up on Google, Pinterest, something like that. Find one you like. I'm going to be using, since lighthouses are long, I'm going to be using a ready cut piece of watercolour paper in that size. And now this is, I think this is £140 cold pressed. It has a slight grain on it, watercolour paper, and it's in a gummed block, so that means that it's like stays down. You know, sometimes when you paint on watercolour paper it buckles. But if you buy a gummed block, it stays flatter. Not always, but the majority of the time it does. So I'll be using that, and I'm going to use a really simple palette because they're quite. I'm just going to use cadmium red. This is a Winsor & Newton one, and a black. I think this black I've got here is lamp black, and I've also got another black there which is, oh, I keep forgetting what they're called. It's a Daniel Smith, and it's probably Lunar Black. That's the one. And that gives a really lovely, like, grainy feel. So they're the two colours I'll be using, and I'll also be using a white gel pen that I've got here. This is a Signo one, which I like to use. Yeah, these ones. And I've also got a black water soluble pencil. I'll be using my favourite brush at the moment, which is this number 16 Royal and Langnickel brush, and it's got a nice point to it. Even though it's synthetic, it's got a nice point to it. And I've got some water here, and I will need a paper towel, and I've also got some blotting paper, which is quite good to use for this because you can get nice straight lines. So if you need to blot out anything, you can get a nice straight line with it. If you're going to draw, I tend not to draw anything first, which might be quite daunting for you if you're a beginner. If you're not very confident, you can just draw really lightly with the water soluble pencil. Now I know that the top of my lighthouse is going to be black, so I would just draw very lightly what you want to paint. Just, oh, you can hardly see that, but it'd be draw like that, because pencil lines are not that good when you are painting. The final painting, it doesn't look that brilliant. The only time it looks good is if you want them to show, and you're doing something like a pen and wash and you add extra lines to it. So let me start off. Now I'm going to start off with the black. Oops, she splashes her paper. I'm mixing up quite a, I suppose you call it, milky consistency, and I just sort of guess the proportions. I'm hoping that this is long enough. Sometimes I run out of paper, like I did on this, because they start off too big and then I can't do the bottom of the lighthouse, but I like the effects that I've got here anyway. So I'm just going to paint the shape. Now, what is really effective when painting these lighthouses is remembering where the light's coming from, and that gives it lots of depth and interest. For this one, I'm doing the light coming from this side, so I'm going to drop in more water on this side and just let the paint do what it wants to do. Sort of rub. If you dry your brush off on some paper towel and then come in and lift some of the colour up, it gives you a lovely effect, and that's what I'm doing there. These are the windows. I mean, you don't have to be really precise, just have a go and let the paint do what it wants to do. I'm going to end up with a too bigger, using this to made it a bit big at the top, but never mind. I'm sure it will look beautiful when I've finished. Now this is bird. It's got like a bigger bit here. Do you like my technical terms? It's got like a bigger bit. And these are the railings. I'll go around the outside, try and now I'm going to come in with my blotting paper and just blot a little area. If you press down with your finger, it will come out. And I'm going to put back in and go back over. Let me paint it. Don't like this bit, it's got a bit weird. So that's the top of my lighthouse painted. Now coming down, it's gonna be white. So I'm gonna pick up a little bit of paint and I'm just gonna try and make a shadow that comes underneath. Clean off my brush and then drag it down. But I'm just coming back in with water and I'm gonna drag down the colour to make the shape of the lighthouse. It does get a bit thicker at the bottom. And remembering the light's coming from this angle, so I'm just going to blot that bit back out that I did and make a darker shadow here. Now this should all be in shadow, but I'm just going over it lightly. You can come back in once it's dry and paint in some darker, because remember it will dry lighter than it actually looks when it's wet. And this lighthouse has another sort of platform here, so I'm going to come in and just put another. I'm going to come in and do the railings when it's drier. I'm just going to pull down some of the colour across the window. So I've got a wet brush here and just pull across the colour. I like how that is looking, and I'm just going to let this dry. You can use a heat gun to speed up the drying process, but sometimes this is really wet and I'll just let it dry for a little bit, and you let all the colour blend in and do what it wants to do, and you get some lovely effects going on. when it's stopped pooling, when the pools have dried up, pools of water have dried up a bit, I might come and finish it off with a heat gun just to speed up the process. I've let this dry completely, and I finished it off with a heat gun, and I've got some lovely effects coming up. I did blot this area as it was half dry with the blotting paper, and it's given me a nice texture. I want this to have like a red band, so I'm going to paint with the cadmium red. It's quite opaque, the cadmium red, so it should cover up some of the black that's there, but it also slightly show through, so there's a bit of shadow underneath it. So I'm going to paint a red stripe here. Covers really well, and just to add a bit of interest so it's not too flat, I'm just going to drop in a bit of water, and I'm going to come in with my blotting paper, and I folded it so it's got a nice straight edge there, and I'm just going to lay it over the top. I'm just going to press down where I want it to blot out some of the colour, and there we go, you have a nice sort of textury red. And you can, if it's blotted out a bit too much, you can add some water and blend it in a bit more, like that. Now, should I have another stripe? I'm not sure. No, I just stick with one stripe, I think, for my, you can make them up. It's good. Now I'm going to come in with the black again. Turn this around so you can see. I'm using it a little bit thicker now, and I'm going to come and I'll try not to get my head in it or smudge things with my sleeve. I'm going to come and just paint in some darker bits. And the same here, I'm going to wait for that red bit to dry completely before I do, I'm going to do some railings there, but I'm just going to let that smudge in a bit. It's like my technical terms. Smudge. Now I'm going to paint in some windows. That's the word. Sorry, my brain forgets words sometimes. I think it's my age. See, I haven't had enough room to paint the whole of the lighthouse, but it doesn't matter. You can make it up. You could have some splashy water coming up, like the sea splashing over it, if you want. And I'll do one just sort of here, going half. Or should I? Decisions. Let me just put in a bit more. Right. Just pull down a bit more shadow here. So I'm just wetting the brush, and I'm going to pull down the colour that's there. It's going to have a bit of red in it, which is quite nice. Sort of warms it all up. Then I'm wetting the brush again and getting rid of the hard line I made and just letting it blend in. It's good to have hard lines sometimes, but just let it smudge in. Now I'm going to let that dry, then I will come in and do the railings, and then we'll let it dry again and add some of the highlights with the pen. That's almost dry, and I'm just going to come in and paint the railings that go around here. And I'm just going to put another little window here. I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to dry off the windows and the railing bit I've done and come in with my white gel pen. Which one works is the thing. I've got one that works better than the other. Let me find it. Yeah, this one. Now I'm just going to come in and just put a little few highlights. I've got my black pencil here as well, because I just wanted to put a little aerial at the top, and you can just tidy up some of the bits with the black pencil. A bit more control. Like that. And this is really effective. You don't have to do it everywhere. It doesn't have to be like correctly lined, but it just picks up some highlights for you. You can be quite scribbly and free with it. Just add some interest to areas where you think the light will catch. Pick out bits. My pen doesn't work that well, so it's really good that it doesn't give a solid line in places. It just picks out bits. That pen. And I finished. I really hope you enjoyed that. Go and have a go. It's quite simple. It looks complicated, but it's quite simple. There's only two colours: the cadmium red, that is Winsor & Newton, and the lunar black, which is by Daniel Smith. Sorry, I keep forgetting. A white gel pen, watercolour paper, watercolour brush, some blotting paper, and you're away. Go and have fun. As I said, you can add some splashy water splashing up. I don't know. Maybe I should try a little bit at the bottom. I might ruin this now. She says I'm going to use a dark blue. You think? Let's have a go, because I've got some. I could turn that into a splash there, I think. Let me see. Will the water be blue? It won't really be blue, will it? Let's make it a dirty blue. Wait, yeah, that's good. Let's splash some waves up here. I probably ruined it now. I'm going to get my tissue. Let's put a little bit more colour in. I'll make it look more like a wave. I mean, get a tissue and blot some areas. It's a bit wavy. There we go. You can, it gives it the effect. Anyway, oh, I splashed it all up there. I'm so messy. Okay. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.